So let's understand first what I call, and that's the title that I gave. I gave the title, I think it's more the resource problem. And why I put that title? I put that title because the schedule cannot be finalized until you assign people to the tasks. So far, we are developing the schedule without considering the resources that the project has available. And therefore, you are not considering any resource limitation. Just to summarize, sequence of activities and activity duration. Project scheduling that you did stopped here. But now with the explanation, we need to understand resource availability and constraints. We need to understand if you have any imposed dates, and then analyze the cash flow, if it's possible to do the project with that cash flow. And once you do that, you try to review it. And so because of that, you may change the sequence. If you need to change the sequence, maybe you have to change the activity durations. And you change the project scheduling. But then you say, oh, there is one resource. If I add one resource on a specific activity in the critical path. Oh, if you do that, then you may have some imposed date by the client. You change the cash flow. Is that possible or not? So you come back and do the sequence. That is a very important aspect on the project. Because some questions that every project manager should be able to answer, okay? Let's suppose, do I have resource to execute the task on that day that I have the task on my schedule? It means if I have a task start on November 18th, do I have all the resources to start the task on that 18th? If someone says, oh, no, the guy that is in charge of that task is working for another task, he cannot go, he can just start on day 22. So if the date on your AON, on your Gantt chart, say that the earliest date is 18, but the resource is just available on day 22nd, it means that you cannot schedule the task on 18th. You have to schedule the task on 22nd. And that's change, okay? That's change. Or you may say a task that you start on a certain day to redo the pavement of our road. And the city of Mississauga say you can just start on March 12th. That's an imposed date. And that's change as well, the cash flow. So we need to understand the resource problem, quantity and availability, quantity of resource required, and if they are available to start the task on the date or not. So let's move now. Then we will talk about cost and budget. But first, let's talk just about quantity and availability. So the project network times are not a project schedule until resource have been assigned. That's very important. You can just consider it is a schedule once you assign the resource. Assumption is that resource will be available in the required amounts when needed. That was the assumption when you did your scheduling for the midterm. AON and then the Gantt chart. But that's not the truth. So we have to make realistic judgments of the resource availability and project duration. And again, cost estimates are not a budget until we allocate the resource, so you can have a time-phased budget. We have two types of project constraints. We may have technical, logic constraints, the ones that we used to determine what are the predecessors of certain activities. That's what we did. Use a technical constraint. Sometimes you have a physical limitation. Maybe you are in a space, you have two jobs to do in that space, but that space, there is room just for one job to be done. Now, we are looking for what we call resource constraint. So it's not related to the interrelationship among tasks, but here the problem is if we have enough resource to do the task on the sequence we've elaborated during the AON. So we can have type of resource can be people, materials, and equipment. So let's suppose here elements of technical constraint. So you have to, for instance, to build a house. Start, put the foundation, build the frame and roof, and end. So in case of software, you have to start, design, code, test, and end. But let's suppose that you are doing a reception. Okay, reception. So you are planning, and then you have 3 tasks: purchase, refreshment, decorate hall, and hire a band, and then the reception. That is a logical, I'd say, execution of the project, just using logical constraints. There is no relationship between them, technically or logically. Okay. But if you are just that guy here, see how he's happy, very happy, because he has to do everything. Okay. That guy is very, very happy. Oh, I have to do everything. I'm so happy. You can see his body language, his face. He's very happy. He's the only resource to do everything. And just one resource available. What can I do? There is no way. If that person is alone, you should put things in sequence. So that sequence here, hire a band, decorate hall, and purchase refreshment, in the final schedule, they were put in sequence because you don't have enough resources. If you have 3 people, probably you can run the project as letter B. But you have just 1 person, so you have to run the project as letter C. What is that change? So you have activity list, activity list. Okay. So no, of course, WBS. You go for activity list. Then you have the AON. Then you have the Gantt chart. But here, when you do that, you are not considering the resources. If you have any, so there is a question that you have to do here, which are the resource available. And I mean available here. I can write more here in that flow. Available, I mean they are available in the quantity and on the dates they are required. You can say yes, the resources are available, and therefore you can have a let's call official or final schedule, final project schedule. Yes. So if you say no, I don't have resources. No, I don't have resources, and I have to do some stuff here. Not enough resources, and there is something I have to acquire. Or here, I have 2 options. Okay. Acquire resources needed. And here, so I'm saying, is it possible to acquire resource needed? If you say yes, you acquire the resources and keep the same schedule as original. If you say no to that answer, to that question, and that's the most common situation, you have to come back here and start reviewing things. Can be on the activity list, can be on the AON, can be on the Gantt chart. Okay? Or both. If you start here, you have to go there because maybe you have to change the estimate of the task. Or you may change with a date or resource constraint on the AON. And that affects the Gantt chart. So there is several things that can be done. So that is the nature of the problem, what you call resource problem. So from here, you have the final schedule, and you can finalize your budget. Because you can just finalize your budget once you have the official schedule. You cannot finalize the budget until you have that. And so that includes another layer of analysis that should be done after doing that. So I'm sorry to tell you, and I ask your forgiveness and mercy, but I lied to you. I lied to you. It's not just 4 steps. You have at least 2 or 3 other steps to finalize your schedule. Do you remember when I said, 4-step scheduling, easy peasy? No, I'm sorry. I'm just trying to not scare you too much. But that is the situation now. You need to have that understanding. That is very complex, and you got that understanding. I'm very happy with that. But in real situations, you have to adjust that. Did you get? It's important to get the logic, okay? Example from the book. They list the activities, then they estimate the durations of the activities, then they create the AON, and from the AON, they create the Gantt chart. So they come up with that Gantt chart. And what you can see in that Gantt chart is that you have the tasks, design, layout, and walkways, lighting, irrigation, fence and walls, and planting. Here on the bottom, you have the days. Remember, in a Gantt chart, is always put the day on the top of the line. Can you see? And you have the design, takes 1 day. Then they move for layout. From the layout for the walkways, irrigation, fence and walls. Then the lighting, because you have to have the walkways done, so you can put the lightnings. And then you start planting after the walkways, irrigation, and fences. And then you can do the planting. That is the result of the AON analysis. That name here is to backhoe. Backhoe is that kind of machine that you have here on the side, okay? That can remove soil, big holes. So that's machine here. So that is the main resource that they need to do that job. That's one important resource. But what is the problem that the guy have? The guy from that project has just 3 machines. Okay? 3 machines. He has just 3 machines. So he doesn't have 8. If he had 8, probably he would do the project like it was here in the Gantt chart. But he has just 3 machines. And that's a problem. And I can ask you, how many machines did the project need on between day 2 and day 4? How many machines? 2. How many machines does the project need between day 4 and 6? 4. So I have 4 here. 4 here as well. 10 and 12. Oh no, here's 4. Here is 1, then 1, then 1, 3, 3, 3, and 3. So what's happened? Can I execute the project as the smart project manager has defined after the AON? Can we execute the project like that? Yes or no? No. What are the solutions we can do to schedule that project? What can you do to have a schedule that is feasible considering the resource available? What can be done? Do lighting and irrigation together, Andrew. So Andrew is proposing that we take that task. Instead of executing here, you move and execute that task over here. If we do that, we will be reducing here the need for 3. And here we have 2. That Andrew proposed is okay. And can you use that? Is that feasible to do that? And that's a kind of graph of resource allocation. Can be in hours, can be in machines. How to read this chapter. How to read this chapter. That's this chapter. Very important. We have project duration on the bottom. And here on the vertical line, vertical axis, we have the amount of resource required. So in time. So day 2 I need 2 trucks. Day 4, I need 4 trucks. Then day 10, I need 1 truck, or 1 machine. Day 16, I need 3 machines, and so on. You have a kind of a graph that shows the resource allocation. The problem arises when you have a limitation. And I mean that blue line here is the amount of resource available. That can be, usually you can see that in that resource load graph on MS Project. If you're allocating someone more than 100% of the time, or his time, that person is supposed to work 8 hours per day, and you allocate tasks to that person, to assign tasks to that person that requires 12 hours of work, that person will be what we call over allocated. And that machine here is over allocated. I cannot execute that top here. I cannot do that. And therefore, I have to find a way to transfer that work for the future. By transfer for the future, sometimes it's okay. It's easy. I can just allocate here and may not affect the final date, project final date. But in some case, I have to move, and I'll be delaying the project, moving the project forward from your HR plan. And you have to assign those guys on the Gantt chart. So you summarize responsibility on histogram, and then you get what is the resource load. So you have 2 things here. You have to input. So first you can put all the activities, predecessors, and you do all the things that you need to do. Then you go here in each task, you click twice in the task and go there and assign a resource. So you have to go and create a resource list inside your the MS project. You have here, go to resource list. And then you have the resource load. But every resource, you can have a graph of resource load. And you have 100% of the resource. So those things here on the top, above 100%, is highly problematic. The guys won't be able to do that job. So you have to start shifting around tasks to reduce the overload. Come back here, in which you have to do your Gantt chart. There is another element that should be done in some place here. That is the grace matrix or responsibility assign matrix, that you'll be adding your responsibility assign matrix to the Gantt chart on MS Project. Because when you do that, assign the resource to the tasks, you'll be able to see the third, the resource overloaded on the graph. And every time that the resource is above 100%, it's a problem. Probably that resource can be a person, material, equipment, tools, whatever. You won't be able to execute the task. So you have, if you say no, you come here. And then you have to tell, well, so let's add another expert. Or is it possible to add another expert or not? Or let's buy a new truck. Let's buy a new machine. Is it possible or not? Do I have budget for that or not? If you say no, I cannot acquire, so I have to come back and start shifting tasks, because you won't be able to execute with the amount of resource that you have. So, and that should be done task by task. There's no other way to do that. Task, I cannot execute that task. What I should do to do that? So I have to reschedule all the tasks, spread the time. Usually the project will take more time if you have to remove the overload, the resource load that is above 100%, to that and take that in consideration and change the Gantt chart. Probably the project will take longer. We work hard to help you to get better marks, be prepared for job interviews, and excel in work meetings. You can send your questions in the comment area below. I will be pleased to answer all of them. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to Américo e-Learning.